From this,
Chelsea are the 2025 Conference League winners.
to this,
A night to remember, a night when that European dream just became more of a reality.
Five straight Premier League games without a win, 0 goals scored, 11 conceded, a record so bad it hadn't happened at this club since 1912. Liam Rose Sr. sacked after just 106 days, and Chelsea, the champions of the world, are fighting to play in the Champions League next season. The crazy part? None of this is an accident, because underneath all those trophies, all that spending, is a club that was quietly becoming a mess long before we all noticed. This is the collapse of Chelsea. When Enzo Maresca arrived at Chelsea in 2024, the club was coming off a season in which they finished 6th under Mauricio Pochettino, a manager who lasted exactly 1 year before the environment broke him. But before Pochettino, there was Graham Potter. Before Potter, there was Thomas Tuchel. Each one arrived with credentials, each one left frustrated, and each one of them was replaced by someone promising things would be different this time. But Maresca was different, not because of what he promised, because of what he actually did. In his full Premier League season, he finished 4th, qualified Chelsea for the Champions League, won the Conference League, and then, in the most unexpected way, guided a team through a punishing summer schedule to win the Club World Cup, beating the most dominant side in the world at their peak. That PSG final is worth pausing on, because the French team were the reigning Champions League holders in the heat of a summer tournament that everyone said would be a distraction. Chelsea beat them under Maresca's system, organised, possession-based, built around Cole Palmer. They looked genuinely like a team going somewhere. Maresca was named Manager of the Month for November 2025. The season had started with real momentum for Chelsea. For the first time in a while, the Blues had a real structure, a real identity. And then came the worst 48 hours of their entire season. After a 2-0 home win over Everton in December 2025, Maresca stood in front of the press and dropped a bombshell.
Worst 48 hours since I joined the club, because people didn't support me and the team.
That sentence broke everything. Journalists spent the next week trying to figure out what he meant, but every time he was asked a question, he only had this to say, because of what it meant. And then he walked away, didn't explain it, didn't name anyone, just left that sentence in the room and went home. So obviously, every journalist on the planet spent the next week trying to figure out what he meant, and every time they asked him,
your opinion, and I respect people's opinion, but again, I don't have nothing to add.
Maresca didn't explain, didn't name names, and everyone was fearing for his time at Chelsea. Here's the thing, behind the scenes, what was actually happening was genuinely wild. Chelsea has 5 sporting directors. They have a medical department that operates completely independent of the head coach. When the medical team gives advice about player load or injury recovery, the manager isn't asked for his opinion, he's just told. And reportedly, Maresca had started ignoring those recommendations, playing players longer than the medical team said was safe, and the board did not like that. So, you have a manager who just won you the Club World Cup, who clearly wanted more control over his own team, and a board that basically said, no, that's not how this works. You're one voice among many. Sit down. And within 19 days of that press conference, Chelsea parted ways with Maresca. He was the 5th permanent head coach since the owners took charge in May 2022. Even by Chelsea standards, that's something else. It was halfway through the season when Maresca left. With the Champions League knockout round approaching, they needed a manager. Who do they go for? Liam Rose Sr., a 41-year-old whose entire managerial experience in English football was at Hull City. Before Chelsea, he had been managing Strasbourg in League One, a club owned by the same Blue Co group that owns Chelsea. So basically, they went internal, promoted the guy from the sister club, the safe pair of hands from within the ecosystem. To be fair to Rosenior, he started brilliantly. He became just the second English manager to win his 4 first Premier League games in charge. Those 4 wins brought lots of optimism, with Chelsea fans briefly thinking, okay, maybe this works. And then the Champions League round of 16 happened. PSG, the team Chelsea had beaten in the Club World Cup final 6 months earlier. The Blues lost 8-2 on aggregate, the joint heaviest defeat in a 2-legged European tie ever. And this is where the Rosenior era starts to get genuinely uncomfortable to watch, because both the results and the press conferences after, it got really weird. See, Rosenior has a very specific style of speaking. He's what you'd call a LinkedIn manager. Everything's about growth, everything's about the journey, everything is about respecting the ball, the process, and the magnificent football club. And honestly, some of his quotes need to be heard to be believed. After one particularly bad performance, when asked about what his players needed to do, he said this.
My players made a decision that they wanted to be around the ball, to respect the ball, and show unity and leadership.
An interview that sounded like he lets the players do what they want. One of the club directors held a fan meeting and told everyone that he believed, and it was obvious, Chelsea were building one of the best teams in the world. And then Brighton happened. Chelsea failed to register a single shot on target. They didn't make a tackle until the 32nd minute. Brighton won 3-0. And this is the press conference that broke the internet.
In the pride that you should have in wearing the shirt, that was unacceptable. I've defended the players, and I am accountable. I've always said that. But after tonight, I think the players as well need to have a look in the mirror for what they put in.
This felt worse. An interview that sounded like a blame on the players, the same players Rosenior allowed the freedom to play. 3 days later, he was sacked. And the most painful part? Nobody knows what Rosenior actually brought to the club. And especially this guy, who is supposed to be Chelsea's talisman, but looked so ordinary under Rosenior's helm. Here's a question nobody is asking loudly enough. How do you take the player who won the Golden Ball at the Club World Cup, the guy who scored twice against PSG in a final, who looked like the best player in England for 18 months straight, and make him look average? Because that's what Chelsea managed to do this season, and it wasn't subtle. The season is almost over, and Palmer has only 9 Premier League goals and 1 assist. And before you say it, yes, he got injured, missed a chunk of the first half of the season. But even if you adjust for minutes played, the drop-off is brutal. In a comparable minute total to last season, he created 22 chances this year versus over 50 in 2024-25. His expected assists dropped from 3.94 to less than 1 per game. Nearly half the output. Same player, different system, different story. And the system is exactly the problem. Under Maresca, Chelsea was designed to feed Palmer into the specific zones where he's dangerous. Central pockets, high XG areas between the lines, the places where his combination of vision, dribbling and finishing make him almost impossible to stop. Under Rosenior, his role shifted. More build-up responsibility, more deep involvement, fewer moments in the areas where he actually scores. They took their best weapon and asked it to do something completely different, then acted surprised when it stopped working. And it wasn't just the system. The players around him fell off a cliff too. Liam Delap was signed specifically to stretch defenses and create space for Palmer, but he has only scored the same number of Premier League goals this season as a centre-back from the academy. The wingers aren't creating. João Pedro is drifting into Palmer's space. The whole attack became one-dimensional in the worst way, easy to read and easy to stop. When you only have one real threat and the system doesn't protect that threat, every opponent in the league figures it out quickly. Rosenior's answer when asked how he planned to fix this? You give him confidence, you point out the things he's doing well. Cole's an intuitive player, he needs to be free to express himself. Again, no explanation on how he can guide Palmer into his system and merely just point out his talent and he can do things himself. That's not a Cole Palmer problem. That's what happens when a club doesn't know what it's actually building and keeps changing the blueprint before anything is finished. Since Blueco took over in May 2022, Chelsea have had 5 permanent managers. Every single one of them arrived with genuine credentials. Tuchel had just won the Champions League with Chelsea. Potter was considered one of the most exciting coaches in Europe. Pochettino had taken Spurs to a Champions League final. Maresca won the Championship, the Conference League and the Club World Cup. These weren't bad managers, these were good managers who walked into a structure that made it almost impossible to do their job properly. The patience is non-existent. It's about building a business. Under the current ownership, winning trophies almost feels like a bonus instead of the actual objective. The model is about buying young, selling for profit, complying with financial rules, growing the asset. Football is the vehicle, the trophy is the byproduct, and the fans can feel it. That's what makes this so difficult to watch. It's not just that Chelsea are losing games, the whole thing feels like it's being run by people who do more business than focusing on the football itself. And now, the final twist? Enzo Maresca, the man Chelsea let go in January, is now the leading candidate to replace Pep Guardiola at Manchester City this summer. The man Chelsea pushed out is about to walk into the Etihad Stadium, where Pep calls it a day at City. Chelsea players themselves seem to understand what was lost. Marc Cucurella spoke about the instability since Maresca left. Enzo Fernandez said his departure hurt us a lot, and Chelsea are now searching for their 6th manager in 4 years, with a transfer ban hanging over them, with Cole Palmer a shadow of himself, with a squad that cost over £1 billion, sitting 7th in the Premier League. The Chelsea everyone knew is a shadow of its former self. Roman Abramovich walked into Stamford Bridge in 2003 with one idea: win. It was neither pretty nor ethical, but it produced 2 Champions League, 5 Premier League titles, and a generation of Chelsea fans who grew up expecting to compete for everything every season. That version of Chelsea felt like a serious football club. What about now? And what about the future?